Welcome to today's video. I'm Richard Chapo. I'm an attorney down in San Diego, California, and I've been representing online businesses for about the last 20 years. Subject of today's video is legal tips for online businesses. Now, this is the last video in our series on starting and running a successful online business legally. It's kind of a step-by-step approach. With most of the previous videos in this series, you should be able to see them on a playlist off to the right, or you can go to our channel and look for the playlist. Most of the previous videos have dealt with specific legal issues, maybe the DMCA or terms and conditions, things of that sort. This is more of a catch-all video, and what we're really covering are some legal tips, but also some practical tips, and generally just things that have fallen through the cracks, and things I think that you would benefit from based on the 20 plus years I've been working in this industry. So let's start with number one. Know thy comfort level with risk. Every business is going to have risk. And there are just certain levels of it. Some are going to be very risky with great potential rewards, and some of them are going to be, with very low risk that may still have great potential rewards. But you need to really get a feeling for, what you're comfortable with as far as risk goes so that you can sleep at night. And that's really the test. When you lay down in the bed at night, are you staring at the ceiling, or are you able to sleep? And how do you feel about that? There is no right or wrong answer to this question. You've had people like Steve Jobs who, slept on people's couches, and, that romanticized story, and obviously it turned out well for him. But there were plenty of other people that were sleeping on people's couches, that now are, asking if you'd like fries with that. So you just need to find your own level. Don't buy into the hype of being an entrepreneur. A lot of people seem to think you're an entrepreneur, you need to be brave. Not really. You need to be you. And for some clients, a high level of risk is something they can tolerate, and for other clients, it's not. Now, as far as the risk itself goes, understand that just because a potential business idea has risk in it, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Let's look at Uber. Uber, from the get-go, has always had a serious legal risk associated with it, and that is whether the drivers are going to be classified as independent contractors or as employees for legal and tax purposes. Now, Uber tries to designate them as independent contractors, and the reason for that is then they become very cheap. There aren't a lot of expenses or benefits that have to be paid to those individuals. If they're reclassified as employees, which is starting to happen now, then Uber's bottom line is heavily affected, because suddenly they have to pay things, like they have to collect and pay employment taxes. There are other benefits and costs, depending on the state that they're in, that they may have to pay as well. And suddenly the bottom line isn't looking nearly as good as it was. Now, I can guarantee you they were aware of this risk when they started out, and they were certainly told by lawyers at different stages, that the risk was very real. But they decided that, that they were comfortable with that, and they thought it was worth having a go at. And I think we can all agree that it probably worked out pretty well, because Uber's done very well. They're very large, and their founders, pretty much cleaned up. Now, if they have problems, with that issue now, if in fact, the courts all come back and redesignate everybody's employees, and it kills their bottom line, well, to be quite honest, the founders probably really don't care, because they already have their money. They've already made a killing. Sure, there's a pride associated with seeing their business be a success, but I'm sure that they can get over the misery of that not being the case, while they're laying on an exotic island somewhere. So know your comfort level with risk, and make sure that you tell your CPA and your attorney what that level is. And so they can, set up your business and provide you with advice that reflects, your comfort level. 2, focus. So the internet, the grand unicorn of humanity. If you think about it, the internet may well be the most amazing thing that we've ever created. Is incredible. The exchange of information, the way that it has greatly reduced the value of physical borders between countries. I mean, all of this stuff. But the sheer amount of information that is out there is incredible. But it can also be a problem, particularly if you're starting and running an online business. And the reason it can be a problem is, again, you don't focus. You get distracted by there being so many shiny baubles. And maybe there are 20 different marketing strategies, for your business that all sound great. Well, I can guarantee you, if you pursue all 20 of them, you're not going to get far because you really need to commit to one or maybe two and see those through. You need to give them time to, to produce, time to, be adjusted and what have you, and to take all the different steps necessary to make sure that they actually, are viable or are not viable. And that can be very hard to do on the internet because, again, there's so many different things out there. You might be driving to work one day and, you hear a podcast and there's some marketer on it that you've never heard of, but my God, he's got a great idea, and you rush into work and you start focusing on that. And 8 hours later, you've completely ignored what you were supposed to be getting done on the marketing side. And now you've gone in a completely new direction and, it quickly becomes a mess. So focus, focus, focus. Now, number 3, create your own products or services as soon as you can. This is extremely important. So what are we talking about here? Well, one of the biggest business models online are affiliate programs, or even Google AdSense, these kinds of things. And I don't have any problem with any of those. But we're talking about an issue here, which is control. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So in the mid 2000s, I had a SEO company that I formed with a friend who was a coder. And so we were more than SEO. We were doing all these different things. And one of the things you would do was develop platforms for specific business niches. And our business strategy, which works today if you want to follow it, was we would develop the whole platform. We would generate SEO rankings, traffic, everything else, and then we would sell it, kind of a turnkey system to businesses within that particular niche. Now, this wasn't like $100 product. This was like $100,000 product. I mean, we're talking a full-blown platform, custom coding. It was just really good stuff. But it took a long time to go from the initial stage to the end stage when we would sell. And so during that period, we would slap AdSense ads onto these sites and, just to put them there just so we'd have some money coming in. This was not some grand business strategy. This was not something that we thought about or we made projections on or anything. It was literally at lunch one day, hey, maybe we should put some AdSense on there. Maybe we make enough money to cover the hosting or something like that. Just no thought at all. So don't think that this was some grand idea. So anyways, we did it. And literally within 3 or 4 months, we were bringing in about 10 grand a month on AdSense, which is a lot for AdSense. And, suddenly we started getting all kinds of attention from AdSense, and they were sending us questions about, our business practices and what we were doing. And then eventually they just cut us off one day and they terminated us. And they said that the quality of content or the quality of our sites was not up to their standards, which was a complete load of nonsense. These were custom sites, custom platforms. These things were great. I mean, the guy who was doing code, his name was Tab, was excellent. This was all, top-notch stuff. And, but they cut us off. And it was just arbitrary. There was no appeal process, nothing. We had no way to control that. Now, it didn't kill us or anything, but it was kind of annoying. So when you participate in AdSense or you participate in affiliate programs, you have to understand you're not in control. And if you come to rely on that revenue, well, it could all be gone one day. I get calls at least 20 times a year. I get calls from people who've lost their accounts and they don't really have a remedy. So you want to be really, really careful with that. So if you go ahead and develop your own products and services, you no longer have that problem because you control those products and services. You build a website for, however you want to sell it. You control all of that medium. Now you might sell through Amazon or run ads through AdWords or something like that, and you have to follow those guidelines. But still, at the end of the day, you have your own products and services. And nobody's going to take those away from you. Now, there is kind of a subset on this idea, and that is social media. So social media, for better or for worse, is out there, and you can build up a large following. And there are people whose entire business model is to build up, a massive following, on YouTube or on Instagram, probably the two most popular platforms. And then they will promote products and services, the basic influencer business model. That's all fine. But again, you have the same issue, which is you're reliant on those platforms, and those platforms control your future. And if they shut down your account for some reason, you are screwed. There's just no other way to put it. So you're probably thinking, well, I'm not going to do anything to get my account taken down. And, that's right. You're not. You're intelligent human being. You're not going to do any of that. However, your account may be taken down for reasons that you don't entirely understand, or for esoteric legal reasons. So let me give you an example. Let's say you start a YouTube site, and you're going to be a gamer. You're going to be the next PewDiePie or whatever his name is. He has 50 million subscribers to his YouTube channel, and gaming companies, they bend over backwards to keep this guy happy. And he's making a lot of revenue from monetizing his subscribers, essentially. So this is what you're going to do. And you spend the next 3 or 4 years playing video games like a madman, videotaping it all, being funny, blah, 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 blah. And you build up a following, your success. Let's say you build up 20 million followers. Well done. Now, you get a complaint one day, and YouTube sends it to you, and they say, we received this DMCA takedown notice. You're playing this video game here, but in the background there is a song from, whoever the latest big musician is. I'm an old fart, so I'd probably name somebody you don't know. But, whoever it may be, the Rolling Stones or, whatever. At this point you need to respond, and you admit, I made a mistake. I didn't know. And so they take that video down. Well, that counts as a strike against you. And each of these social media platforms, and in fact, every website that allows user to generate content, has what's called a repeat infringer policy. They're required under law, under the DMCA. And what this policy says is that if a user of that platform gets more than X number of complaints or strikes against them within a certain period of time, their account must be terminated. Now, this is a requirement under the DMCA. This isn't YouTube or Instagram just arbitrarily coming up with this policy. They have to do this. And they know that this is important because some internet service providers have been crushed by not having a policy or violating their own policy. And in fact, there was a case involving an internet service provider called Cox Communications. They provide cable services, so they allow you to basically, be able to connect to the internet. And they had their own repeat infringer policy, and they were sued by a music publisher who thought that they weren't enforcing it. And when they did discovery, which is the ability to discover documents and emails and things of this sort, they found out that, in fact, Cox was not enforcing their repeat infringer policy. And in fact, one of the managers had issued an order saying, we're going to enforce the repeat infringer policy, but once you terminate these people, wait 30 days, then contact them again and offer to reopen their account. So that didn't look good in court. And the result was an award of $25 million was rendered against Cox Communications. Now, I don't care how popular you are on YouTube or Instagram, but those companies are not willing to take on a $25 million judgment for you. So they're going to have this repeat infringer policy, and they're going to enforce it. And all these companies are fully aware of that decision against Cox. And so if you get into a situation where you trigger the repeat infringer policy, you're going to wake up one morning, there's going to be an email from that platform saying, "Dear so-and-so, unfortunately, we received X number of successful strikes against your account under the DMCA. This violates our repeat infringer policy, and we have terminated your account effective immediately. And you have no right to get it opened again. It's gone. Poof. Zippo, as though you never existed." So that should give you kind of a shiver down your spine. So how many complaints are we talking about, and over what period of time? Well, this is where matters get really grim. We're talking exorcist scary. The numbers are very low. The custom standard for the industry is typically 3 strikes over a 2-year period. It can be lower than that. So we're talking about 3 cases in a 2-year period. That's it. And would you have competitors who might try and file DMCA complaints against you? If you say no, then you're being a bit naive. So what can you do? Well, the important thing is, should you build up a following on social media? Absolutely. I'm not suggesting you don't, but you should take the next step, which is to try to get those people to give you their email addresses for your email list. Have them go to your site so you can generate an email list. Because once you have that email list, now you have control of their contact information. And even if Instagram or YouTube or whoever shuts you down, you can still drip market on those people. You still have access to your followers. And so you've moved control away from those platforms and back to yourself. So again, if you lose one of your accounts, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be a happy day. I'm not suggesting it is, but it's not going to be the end of the world. So always remember, control. Control is a huge issue online. So next subject, consider JVs for quick profits. So I always enjoy reading videos and seeing the 9 million, or reading books and seeing the 9 million videos that are out about how to build an online business. And if you follow them from beginning to end, they start with, how to get a website set up, how to buy a domain, and then they go through each step, and how to do marketing and everything else. And, and that's great. That's fine. And you can absolutely learn every step, or you can be lazy and do what a lot of very wealthy people making tons of money online are doing. And that is pursuing joint ventures. So if we go back to our previous step, you are a smart cookie. You have developed your own product or your own service, and it's quality. You've done something that has real value. Now it's time to market it. You need traffic. Okay, well, now you can go learn marketing and try and master all those skills and everything else. And maybe you pull it off. Maybe you won't. It's pretty hard to stand out these days from other products and services and, other pitches out there. So one alternative might be, instead of doing that, you go find somebody who already controls all of that traffic, all the traffic that you need to access and to be in front of. So let's say that you develop, I don't know, trying to think off the top of my head. Maybe you develop, a product on how to, always defeat video games, how to always win video games or something like that. Then obviously somebody like PewDiePie who's on YouTube, that has a huge following. Well, you might want to contact that person and say, hey, I have this great product, or great service, whatever it is. And, it'd be perfect for your audience. I'd like to give it to you for free so you can try it out and play around with it. And then if you're interested, maybe we could talk about, getting it in front of your audience. And, I'm very flexible in revenue splits and things of that sort. And so what you're trying to do is, get in front of the people that control the traffic, because if they bite and they take you on for a partnership or a joint venture just for that particular product, you can make a huge amount of money very quickly. So let's forget PewDiePie. Let's just say we have a mythical person that has 20 million people following them on YouTube, and you have a product or service they're interested in. You contact them, they try it out, they like it, and they say, okay, here's the deal. I'll promote it in my videos. I'll actually use it in my videos. We'll set up this landing page over here and a specific website for the product, and we'll split revenues 50-50 after costs. And you say, sure. Okay, well, you might be thinking 50-50, but wait a minute, I spent all this time and money developing the product. Yes, you did. But we're talking volume here. So if you go out and learn your marketing, spend the time and money to learn marketing, statistically, you're just not going to be great at it. You may be passable at it. And so maybe you produce, I don't know, $50,000 in sales, but you don't have a controlled audience. You don't have any credibility with the potential audience, the target audience, whereas this person, who already has a following does. And so if you go out and you get, he starts wearing, whatever the product is, or using it, whatever it is, in front of 20 million of his followers, he does that for a couple months, well, maybe 5% of those people, decide, hey, I got to have that. Well, that's 1 million people. I mean, that's a big number. And so let's say you have a 50-50 split. The product costs, I don't know, $50. And so you're making $25 per sale. That is $25 million. It's a hell of a lot more than your 50 grand. And the beauty of it is you don't have to do jack. You just have to make sure the website keeps working and, the transactions are working and that everything's being tracked. Now, obviously, that's a simplified situation, and the people that have that kind of a following aren't going to likely go into a JV with you. Instead, they're just going to want payments. But there are people that have smaller followings that would certainly fall for that. There are people that run, maybe they mastered Facebook advertising and Facebook funnels, and they'll be willing to work a split with you. There are plenty of people that do that. So there are all kinds of different options that are out there, but don't discount JVs. I think it's great. You're growing your own business. And sure, it would be noble to learn every step, but the purpose of the business is not to learn every marketing technique and every aspect of a digital business. The purpose is to make money. And don't ever forget that. And so if you can short circuit, or not short circuit, but if you can, find shortcuts to certain aspects of the business, then do that. And JVs are one of the best ways to do that. So at least give it some thought. Number 5, look for new tech. So I saw a video with Pat Flynn. I'm sure many of you know who Pat is. And he runs Smart Passive Income, and he has videos, podcasts. He speaks at shows, very well thought of. And he said something in the video that I thought was pretty amazing. Now, Pat has been around since, I want to say, like 2008. So he's got 10 years in. And in the last few years, he's had a podcast. And, he talked about he's written books and he's has his website, he's done videos and everything else. But the thing that produced the biggest results for him and the most, the biggest following was his podcast. And when you look at it and you look at when he got involved and what have you, you realize that he was he wasn't one of the first people, but he was in the early batch, the early first movers in that tech. And I think that certainly helped him, because not only was he credible, because of the information that he provides, which is excellent, but he was, right place, right time. Now today, everybody has a podcast. I mean, my grandmother probably has a podcast. So, it's a bit late to be getting into it. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be successful, but, you're in a market that's pretty saturated. So looking around and keeping an eye out for new tech, what's the next thing going to be? What's it going to be after podcasts? And trying to get into something early can often be very advantageous, because if you're there at the right time, which is early on, and you have credibility, you offer value in whatever it is that you're providing, you may quickly develop a large following. And once you have that large initial following, you're going to have a captive audience on that platform for as long as it's viable. And that you can make a lot of money. Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan is, is he a funny comedian? Some people think he's funny. Some people don't think he's not. Some people think he asks, bizarre questions. Some people think he asks excellent questions, but he rolls out, 2-hour, 3-hour podcast episodes, with all these different people, and he is making a bundle because, advertisers are paying tons of money, to be involved with that process. Now, again, he was somebody who adapted pretty early and did it really well and successful. If another comedian tried to do it now, well, the people that already like them would probably certainly listen, but trying to grow an audience to the size that Rogan has would be very difficult, unless they poured a lot of money into it. And even then, you probably wouldn't have the credibility or the staying power that Rogan has. So if you see new tech out there, investigate it. And I know this kind of violates the focus discussion. I'm not suggesting you jump at every new little, shiny tech idea that comes along. But if you see something that looks viable and you can see the potential in it, getting in early is always advisable. Number 6, a good CPA. So CPA is a certified public accountant. That people do your taxes. Internet businesses are famous for overpaying taxes because you don't do any organization. A good CPA is not somebody that you show up 2 weeks before tax returns are due and dump all your receipts on them. A good CPA is somebody who sets up meetings with you twice a year. And during those meetings, they review your personal and business situation, the finances, what's happening, and then they will organize events in your life, financial events, in a manner that will maximize your tax savings. So, for instance, the big event in 2018 and moving forward is the Trump pass-through business tax deduction. It's a beautiful thing. Whatever you may think of Herr Donald, we're getting a 20% tax deduction. So that means that if you make $100,000 on your, your online business, and it's, let's say, an LLC, well, you're going to get a $20,000 deduction when figuring out your business profits. That is huge and very helpful. It's also very new. And so there are caps and all kinds of different rules about how the deduction works. And you would want a progressive CPA who's going to say, okay, you have a pass-through entity, so this is going to work. However, here are the rules and regulations. We need to do this, 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 and stay away from this to make sure that you qualify and you get the maximum amount of the deduction. And we should position some of your other income in this way so that it doesn't, cause problems. These kinds of things. You're looking for proactive advice on how to do that, and it's going to save you a ton of money on taxes. And you can even deduct the CPA's fees. So do that. I really, really encourage you to do that. You'll be surprised how much money you can really save. And so our final tip, and this is very, very old school, but it also is very important and very effective. Google Alerts. So if you're not aware what Google Alerts are, basically you can go to Google Alerts and set the system up to send you an email once a day or once a week, whatever it is, on whatever keyword phrase you enter. So you want to set up Google Alerts for the name of your business and probably your own name as well, and then maybe the name of competitors, and then set up an alert for the niche you're in, anything that would be developing that you want to know news about. And then Google will send you an update. I usually set it to once a week, on whatever the news stories pop up regarding those topics. And that can be very important because if somebody's ripping your business or somebody is complimenting it or something of that sort, you want to know. And so that you can respond in kind. You also want to keep an eye on what your competitors are doing. So if your competitor answers, or announces, some new plan or some new product or service, you want to know as soon as possible, what's going on there. In your niche, if there are developments, there's a news story, there's a new law that's being contemplated, or maybe a new tax, or whatever that's in your niche that's going to impact your business or impact your target audience. You want to know what that is, because then you want to kick out a blog post or a social media post, on that topic. And if you're reacting quickly to that, you can get ahead of your competitors, make yourself stand out. So there's a lot of value in Google Alerts. And yes, it is incredibly old school strategy and approach. A lot of people don't use it anymore, to their detriment. So I'd really strongly suggest using that. You don't need to read each article. You can just flip through the headlines and see what they're talking about. And you'll be able to pick out the ones that are important for your business. So I'm sure I have other tips that I'll remember as soon as I stop recording this video, but that's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at my website. It's SoCal, like Southern California, internetlawyer.com. Or you can also leave comments below. Please don't leave any sensitive information. Remember, those comments below are public in nature, so you don't want to put anything in there that you don't want the public to be aware of. And hopefully you'll subscribe to this channel. We'll be issuing a whole load of videos on online business and legal topics related to online businesses over the coming years until I fall over. And hopefully they'll be of interest to you. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.